So many Hawaiians today are struggling to articulate their feelings of eha, of pain, of anger, and frustration that all stem from colonization. And I'm here to give voice to all of us who are trying to make sense of where we are in relationship to where we've come from. Ano ai ke aloha kākou. My name is Kekoa ke aloha, and this is Iola ka Lahui, a series dedicated to deconstructing colonization in Hawaiʻi and its impacts on our reality today. I also hope that it serves as a reminder to us all to hoʻi ka piko. So please go ahead, do all of the things. Follow me, subscribe. You can find me on YouTube. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Blue Sky. And I'm going to be really honest. This might be difficult for some folks to listen to if they aren't familiar with colonization, and especially if they aren't used to hearing the United States being held accountable for its transgressions against Native peoples and foreign governments. For many of us Hawaiians, this is just everyday life. And for others, it's probably a shock. In any case, I invite you to sit with that discomfort and ho'olohe mai. Just listen. And if you have any questions, please ask. I would love to respond to honest, good faith questions because ultimately, I really hope that this series opens up a fruitful dialogue. So, a little bit of background. This series started as a small segment on TikTok named Iola no ka Lahui, Decolonizing HIV Care, where I used the social determinants of health as the lens through which I viewed the experience of colonization in a modern world, particularly as it impacts health outcomes for people living with HIV. This is a seemingly complex topic, but if I can just break it down real quick, it would be like this. First, colonization is a social experience, a transformation that impacted our economic, political, physical, and social reality. Second, the social determinants of health being the non-medical factors that impact health outcomes, which is things like economic stability, healthcare quality, healthcare access, education quality, education access, the neighborhood and the built environment, the social and community context. Basically, these are all the things about where we live, where we work, and where we play. These are all things that are shaped by and informed by colonization. But here's the thing. The social determinants of health are interconnected, and colonization has impacted far more than just our health outcomes. And we, as Hawaiians, know that we've been impacted, but we haven't really been able to explain it to people before someone tells us that we should be grateful to be Americans and that we should be thankful that the United States took over Hawaiʻi and not someone else like Japan or China. Crazy manipulative statements like that aside, I think it's worth taking the time to explore our history of colonization, not as an excuse for our behaviors today, and not really to hyperfixate on the things that caused us harm, but to identify the problems and subsequently identify the solutions. The solutions, I'm convinced, lie in ike kupuna and ike ku'una, ancestral knowledge and traditional knowledge, respectively. There are so many people who are already doing excellent work in response to our history of colonization, and I look forward to honoring them throughout this series. But what can you look forward to in this series? Well, for one thing, we'll talk a little bit about history, just a little bit. Not much is necessary, but I am personally less concerned with giving everyone a history lesson and more concerned with how we use historical information to understand where we are today and guide where we're going. There are so many creators out there who put out really good content that'll give you the ike needed to really grasp what's being discussed here. But I also really want to honor the Olelo No'eo I kawa mamua kawa mahope, which means the future is in the past. Basically, this Olelo No'eo is telling us to use historical knowledge to guide our future, and I happen to agree. Another thing that we're going to talk about is our political reality. There's a lot of dialogue around shutting down the idea that we weren't colonized because of the technicalities around the overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy. And I don't want to shy away from the discussion around the illegal occupation of Hawaiʻi, but I won't really be talking about it in that context here, because what I want to discuss more is the really profound social transformation that really happens to Indigenous people who've been absorbed into a larger oppressive society. Colonization and occupation are two different things, and I'm not going to refute either one of them. And in a way, I don't think I'm even going to be talking about colonization in the traditional sense, but more through a sociological lens as a sociological project. What are the hallmarks of colonization? What are the common outcomes of colonization among people who've experienced it? Can the same be said of an occupied nation throughout history? So I will dive into that some more, just to kind of, I guess, fatten up the conversation. But I would argue that both occupation and colonization have occurred here in Hawaii. Additionally, what we'll talk about is how we affect meaningful and impactful change. There is no question that we must submit to the county, state, and federal governments in so many ways. But there's also no question that the systems in place by the colonial governments fail us time and time again. People like Queen Lili'uo Kalani and Prince Jonah Kuhio Kalanianaole sought to remediate some of the injustices that we've experienced, but really only to very limited success. But we don't have the luxury of sitting idly by, because if we do, we are co-signing our own displacement. But the same systems that demand our active participation also actively hurt us, and we must address that. I know a number of Hawaiians who are adamantly opposed to working within these systems, and for me, I just disagree. We have too many people who need help and need help now. We should be gathering resources to help one another, and we should be part of policy discussions. We should really be key decision makers in our own homeland. We should be demanding accountability from all of the people who are charged with representing our interests, from the local county governments to the state and to the federal government. Lastly, we'll talk about how we move forward as a Lahui. I'm not going to pretend like I have all of the answers or like there's some sort of simple solution, because there isn't. But I really think that we need to be talking more about our future. What will our keiki have left? What will the generations after us come to know as their Hawaii? What is our role now? Are we stewards of our aina? How do we aloha aina and how do we malama aina? How do we navigate this ever-increasingly American world? Let's not mince words. We have to know how to navigate these changes. And so there is a lot of pressure on us to get it right and to keep moving forward. I don't think our kupuna could ever have known the types of changes that we'd experience in our lifetimes. And I feel like we need to be very intentional about how we holomua. Admittedly, there really is a lot that falls under the umbrella of colonization. So I'll start pretty surface level before I go into the more nuanced things. But let it be known that not much is going to be off limits. There's going to be discussion around ma'i, or illness, politics, land theft, poverty and housing, education, mahu and aikane, everything that you might expect and then some. I'll be talking about how current events stand in contrast to our history, and if there is something that you want to discuss, maybe leave a comment and let's get this conversation going. I would also be very happy to have guests one day. I just need to learn how to manage that once this series gets off the ground. So I guess more to come. More will be revealed. Alright, I hope that everyone is having a wonderful day, and let's kūkākūkā. Let's get this conversation going. Iola ka Lahui. Ahui ho.